Hello and welcome to Football Talk by the 2 Point Conversion. My name is Dylan Jackson. Today I'm joined by my co-host Jacob LaQuire. Jacob, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I'm just nervous about this weekend, right? The Panthers have to bounce back after that dreadful performance in New England.
Yeah, they're a home team. They play better in front of a home crowd, and they play a pretty rough Miami Dolphins team. I know they got a win against the New York Jets on Monday night, but I'm still pretty optimistic about the game. Actually, I know I shameless plug wrote about the Panthers offense being pretty broken so far this season, and I do stand by everything really that I wrote there. But this Dolphins defense, especially the back seven, might be equally, if not more broken, just based off of the talent level that they have.
Yeah, and hopefully the Panthers are able to get back guys like Xavier Leggett. I know Jalen Coker is eligible to come off of IR, and head coach Dave Canales said that we'll get a look at Jimmy Horn Jr. this year or this weekend, the sixth-year rookie. So hopefully some of the stuff works. We'll have to see. I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'm about one bad first half away from being completely out on Bryce Young again.
Yeah, I get that. I'm kind of there already with some of the play calling and some of the decision making, but it's not like they can change that kind of thing. So uh, I just have to hope for the best. I have to hope Bryce Young can give us another 250-point win or yard win. Have to hope Dave Canales does all the right things, but they haven't really proven that it's worked so far outside of the stint last year at the end. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and if they are to kind of make something happen, you would hope that it's against a Dolphins team that really doesn't have much in the way of secondary help outside of Minka Fitzpatrick. I think that you could make an argument that that's a pretty big matchup advantage for the Panthers, having Tedoroa McMillan. Hopefully, you get Xavier Leggett back, and he's utilized in a role that better fits him than what they had earlier in the season. And we'll see. We'll see. But I'm cautiously optimistic about that Panthers game. But we have a loaded podcast today. We're going to buy and sell some 3-1 teams, some of the more interesting 3-1 teams. We're going to talk about some rookies from the 2025 class that have really flashed so far. We're going to give our game of the week picks, which I'm excited about. There's a few really intriguing matchups. And then we've got a top 10 mock draft. We're going to check in on some college prospects as well. So we have a lot to get through. You can follow the show at 2P_conversion on Twitter. You can follow it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. You can follow the 2 Point Conversion. You can subscribe to it at 2pointconversion.com. Jacob, do you have anything you want to plug that's already out or upcoming?
I'm doing an article this week about some of the QBs in the draft that could possibly be QB1. I think I've narrowed it down to 8 different players. And I know that's a lot for one position, right? Who's probably going to go number one overall. But I think out of the dozens of draft eligible quarterbacks, 8 have really made a name for themselves so far. And we'll talk about some of those guys during our quick mock draft later.
Ty Simpson, if you will.
I mean,
Interesting.
he's spoiler. He's not going to be in the top 10, unfortunately. But he has really improved over the course of the season. I don't think he played poorly in the FSU game. He was just very rushed, and he's been clinical so far. And the win in Athens at Georgia, first ever night loss for Kirby Smart since he's taken over. 33 home win streak snapped by Ty Simpson's Crimson Tide. Really, really impressive performance. No turnovers, 3 touchdowns, just really good.
Ty Simpson, intriguing player to kind of track throughout the remainder of the season. Very, very accurate so far this year. But let's go ahead and start buying and selling some of these 3-1 teams throughout the NFL. There's a few really interesting names on this list. We're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers, who, they started 3-0. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who we'll talk about in a second. But are you buying, selling, or holding the San Francisco 49ers at 3-1?
So I'm going to hold the 49ers. They play tomorrow. We're recording on a Wednesday night here. And let me just read you their starting lineup for the QB and the skill positions. It's Mac Jones at quarterback, Christian McCaffrey, and then the receivers are Demarcus Robinson, Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez Scantling, and the tight end is Jake Tonjes. Those are three guys that like were at the bottom of the Chiefs receiving core at some point in their last 5 years or something like that. And because they're so banged up and still 3-1, because I think Mac Jones has played better than Brock Purdy through the first 4 weeks, I'm gonna hold until I see at least one or two of the skill players get healthy again, or at least Brock Purdy be fully healthy again, because I don't think we really know what this team is so far, and they've still been able to rattle off 3 wins. Uh, the Jaguars game was hit or miss, or not hit or miss. It was miss, and Purdy really put the team in a poor situation there. But I think if there's some better health, like if they get more positive regression on the health front, then this can be a team that can still win a lot of games. So I'm going to hold.
I get where you're coming from. I also just can't really get over the injuries, right? And I get I'm the like resident 49ers pessimist of the podcast, but like at every turn, the injuries have just kind of gotten worse so far this season. And that's kind of been the case with a lot of these Kyle Shanahan 49ers teams over the past few years. Like we haven't really gotten an update on Brandon Ayuk in weeks, really. George Kittle got hurt, and I think it was the first quarter of the week one game. And we haven't really heard anything about him coming back anytime soon. Obviously, Brock Purdy, there was some weirdness about that injury. I think they maybe rushed him back a week too soon. So it seems like there's kind of a re-injury there potentially. Nick Bosa obviously is out for the season. So I'm gonna sell this team just mainly because I can't get over those injuries, and I think this is a incredibly tough division that they're playing in. I mean, they play the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday night this week. The Seattle Seahawks look incredible. The I think Cardinals have looked up and down so far this year, but it's going to be interesting to watch just how good this 49ers team can continue to be. But yeah, I think the injuries are really preventing me from holding or buying this team at 3-1. And I do think like Robert Saleh has really improved this defense, particularly the running defense. Michael Williams looks really, really good on early downs. You've got Alfred Collins as well. CJ West on this team as well on the interior. But yeah, I mean, they lost Nick Bosa. Upton Stout is like a really, really sneaky good nickel corner who they got in the third round of this past draft. So I think there is genuine improvement on the defense, but I just can't get over the offensive injuries. Like they lost Juwan Jennings, they lost Ricky Pearsall, so they're down to like their wide receiver 5, I think, something like that. And it's a team that I thought lacked juice regardless. So Christian McCaffrey is going to have to carry the ball like 40 times tomorrow night. So I'm pretty pessimistic about this 49ers team in the near future, but I get they have a pretty easy schedule.
And it's completely understandable. Save us, Christian McCaffrey. It's how it's going to have to be the next couple of weeks. And on a team where he is like your most healthy skill position player, that's rough, right? But hopefully they can get some pieces back over the next couple of weeks and really string some wins together. They've beaten the Seahawks already. They've beaten the Cardinals already. And I expect the Rams to win tomorrow night, full disclosure, but they already have a favorable division record. So if they can bide their time with an easy schedule until some of their key pieces get back on offense, I can see them still making like a playoff run or a run to win the division.
It's going to be tough just because I think the injuries have really stacked up. But yeah, I mean, if they can get players healthy for the second half of the year in particular, I could see a world in which they're maybe a wild card team. I'm not sure at this point that they'll overcome the Rams, especially if they lose on Thursday night. But I could absolutely see a world where they're like the 6 or 7 seed in the NFC playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving on, another NFC West team, we've got the Seattle Seahawks, who I'm actually going to buy. I really like the Seahawks team. Currently, they're 7th in defensive EPA per play allowed. This is a very elite defense with good players kind of all over the place. Julian Love, Devon Witherspoon, Ernest Jones is really good. Leonard Williams playing at an all-pro level for a second straight year. You've got Byron Murphy making more of an impact. Like, there's just dudes all over the place. Boye Mafe also improving year over year. I love the defense. Sam Darnold has been excellent so far this year. Like, I was super skeptical of the Geno Smith trade and kind of signing Sam Darnold in his place, but Darnold has quietly been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL so far this year. Ninth in EPA per dropback, third in air yards per attempt, eighth in completion percentage over expected, and you've got two running backs that are fun. I really like what Gray Zabel has added to the offensive line, and Jackson Smith and Jigba is playing at an all-pro level. He's second in receiving yards, sixth in reception EPA. Just a very, very good player. So I think the pieces are here for the Seahawks to be a very, very good playoff team, if not an NFC contender.
Yeah, I'm going to buy as well. This team's just outstanding right now since the week 1 loss to the 49ers, where, again, they had the win in their hands. The backup tight end just took it from them. They've been really, really good. We'll talk about the game they have later this week. I think it'll be a good test, but they've just been hitting on all levels. Sam Darnold, like you were mentioning, one of the better QBs in the NFL so far. And I think the early returns of the Geno Smith for Sam Darnold swap have been very favorable. I'll admit that I was wrong, at least for now. I was very skeptical that would work, given that I'm not a fan of the Seahawks O-line. I'm still not a huge fan of their offensive line through 4 games, but Darnold's playing very well. You mentioned JSN as probably a top 3 to 4 receiver in the league right now. And the not to mention the defense has just been incredible. So I'm going to buy this team. If we're picking I don't know, because the Rams are still in this division. I think this is a team that can have a very, very good chance of not only winning the division, but just making an outright playoff bid if they end up losing the division.
So I'm actually going to make you pick which team you would rather, or which team you would say is likelier to win this division between the Seahawks and the Rams. I know it's kind of tough, kind of on the spot, but I think it's an interesting question considering the landscape of the NFC. Like, I just think both teams are playing at such a high level right now. They haven't played each other either. I think they play each other twice in the second half of the season. But what if you had to choose one, which team would you rather, or which team are you kind of more inclined to say is going to win this division?
So I'm trying to look at the Seahawks were second last year, right? So they have a second place schedule. So they're getting the Commanders and the Vikings, while the Rams are getting the Packers and they already played the Eagles. I think the Seahawks are a more complete team, but I think the top talent, like Puka Nacua, I think would be the best player on the Seahawks, right? He's the best receiver in the league right now. I think Stafford's playing very well right now. The defensive front, even though the Seahawks defensive front I think is very good, I think the Rams defensive front can apply more pressure when they need to. I think I'll say the Seahawks. I think they're a more complete team, but Sam Darnold, no matter how good he plays, always has the ability to shrink when the lights get really bright. So if there were any reservations I would have, it's that there might be a late game or late season game where it's the division's on the line and Darnold ends up losing. Kind of exactly what happened last year when they were playing the Rams in the playoff, or was it week 18 or was it the play? I don't remember, where they got fried by the Sam Darnold's Vikings got fried by the Rams.
Yeah.
It was in the playoffs actually, because they also lost in the regular season to the Rams last year. So actually, I'm gonna lean the Rams because of that. Like, I can't trust Darnold in the lights until he proves it.
I actually really like that point, because I was kind of leaning towards the Seahawks here for a little bit, just because of what you said about them being so well-rounded. I think I trust the overall defense from the Seahawks much more than I do the Rams. But the high-end talent for the LA Rams, I think, is just a little bit better. I trust the quarterback significantly more with Matt Stafford. I mean, he's gotten like 15 years of high-level quarterback play. With Sam Darnold, there's a proof of concept here. I think it's worked so far this season. It worked last year up until week 18 and the wild card round. It's going to be tough when it comes down to those games that he plays against elite high end front fours, Whereas, he's played against some decent pass rushing teams so far, but the last two games have been the Saints and the Cardinals, and neither of those teams have pretty intimidating pass rushes. And when they have gone against more, let's say like robust pass rushing units against the 49ers in week 1 and the Steelers in week 2, I think it looked a little bit less favorable for Darnold. So I'm going to go with the Rams as well, but I think it's really, really close. And it could come down to this Rams team plays the Seahawks 3 weeks before the season ends. It might come down to that game.
Yeah, and to that point, I just pulled up the box score from that playoff game where the Rams hosted the Vikings in the wild card round. Sam Darnold was the Vikings were 6 for 17 on third down. Sam Darnold took 9 sacks in that game. You got to remember the Vikings offensive line also wasn't at full strength at the end of the year, but 9 sacks in that game. He threw a pick, lost a fumble, and the Rams offense wasn't moving the ball either. It was like a total Darnold collapse in that game. Kind of gave the Rams the win there. So until he proves otherwise to me, like that's just going to be in my mind. I don't know.
Let's talk about the next team on our buying or selling list, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's the last team that we're going to talk about. Are you buying or selling what you've seen from the Jacksonville Jaguars so far with a 3-1 record?
So it's hard to be negative so far, given that they're 3-1. I think Liam Cohen has really revamped their rush attack, which was just dreadful last season. But I'm actually going to lean more towards the sell side. Right now, I would hold, but if I have to pick, I'm going to sell. They've gotten extremely lucky with their defensive turnover, or takeaway luck, right? You wrote down here 13 takeaways through 4 games. That's incredible, right? That's over 3 takeaways per game. Their turnover margin is incredible as well. And it feels kind of fool's gold like to me. I don't know. Like they've beaten the Panthers. They beat the 49ers with some pretty poor. The Panthers had poor quarterback play in that game as well. And the other team they beat were the Texans, right? And in that game, Stroud couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I don't know. Like they haven't faced great competition so far.
They will.
They played on Monday night, if I'm not mistaken. They play the Chiefs. That's going to be an interesting one. But I think I'm going to lean sell. Like they've been good so far. Don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't feel sustainable to me. Whereas I look at the Seahawks and I see an elite defense right now. I see Darnold playing much better than what Trevor Lawrence is playing right now. I see a receiver in Jackson Smith-Njigba who isn't afraid to catch the ball or get hit over the middle. Like I see all the pieces that I trust. It's just I don't know if I trust a lot of the stuff that's going on in Jacksonville.
That felt like some Brian Thomas shade.
Oh, I mean, I thought I was being pretty clear about that. Yeah, he's improved, but I just can't get out of my mind how he ducked away from players even when the ball wasn't close. Like the ball could be 3 yards over his head, and he would shirk away from contact. So I don't know, can't get that one out of my head either.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to expect that turnover margin is going to come down as the season progresses. Like +9 in the turnover category is ridiculous through 4 weeks. That is unrealistic. And I will say, I think there's some genuine bright spots for this team. I think Liam Cohen has done a just masterful job reviving this running game. Travis Etienne looks completely different compared to last year. I know we talked a little bit about it on the podcast last week. Bashal Tutin, I think, is going to play a real role for this team down the stretch. Brian Thomas, we'll see. Parker Washington looks fine. Britton Strange is kind of the leading receiver on this team right now. Defensively, I think Devin Lloyd has completely exploded this year. In the 49ers game in particular this past week, he was all over the field. He was making so many plays. I think he had an interception. It was either a forced fumble or fumble recovery. Just he was all over the field for that Jaguars team. And I've talked about it in the past how linebackers just take a while to develop, and it looks as though Devin Lloyd has taken a huge step in the right direction. Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, both of those guys are incredible. But I'm still selling even with that optimism, just because I think they've gotten incredibly lucky. And you mentioned the Chiefs this coming Monday. Guess who they play after that? It's two teams that we just mentioned in the Seattle Seahawks and Los Angeles Rams. So they could very well have a losing record after these next three games at 3-4. It's those three teams are the toughest games on their schedule, I think, maybe for the rest of the entire year. So it might be kind of a ball don't lie type of moment for them. But I do want to talk a little bit about Travis Hunter. This team spent 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick to move up to get him, or more than that, I think. But so far, his role has kind of been limited on both sides of the ball. And frankly, I think it's devolved a little bit. In week one, I thought we got kind of what Travis Hunter would end up being this year for the Jaguars, where he was in the game for most of those slot routes against Carolina. After that, it's kind of devolved. He's kind of been on the field, off the field. So I have some stats here. So on offense, Travis Hunter has run 97 routes. He's had 21 targets, 13 receptions, 118 receiving yards, and a negative 7.2 receiving EPA. Defensively, he's played 95 snaps. He's been targeted 10 times, allowed 9 receptions for 109 yards with a targeted EPA of plus 12. That's not very good. He's allowed a catch rate over expected of plus 15 as well. That's also not very good. So you're kind of in a situation right now with Jacksonville where it looks as though they're trying to rationale spending that much on Travis Hunter, and they're just getting the worst of both worlds on either side of the ball. So I think they're still figuring things out offensively and defensively with Travis Hunter. If it's me, I'm just gonna tell him to play receiver and get over it. But yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes, because Liam Cohen had some weird comments after the game, talking about how like they're gonna keep Travis Hunter's role, like whatever it is, in-house something. It was weird. Not what you would want to hear about the second overall pick, but again, it's super early in the season. I think they will figure it out. Liam Cohen's one of the few coaches that I think I would probably trust with a guy like Travis Hunter.
I think Hunter's being spread too thin, and
Yeah.
the stuff you pulled on makes sense. Negative negative EPA on offense and allowing positive on defense, which is actually like a negative. You're being a net negative, I guess, on
Yeah.
defense if you give up positive EPA. Football, or the NFL in particular, is a specialization league, especially for young players. You kind of want them doing one thing very well. And I think that when you trade up to take a guy number 2 overall and you give up all the stuff you mentioned, the multiple first, well, you select him with a first, you give up a future first, and you give up a second round pick. I think the correct way to rationalize that is by playing him in one spot. I mean, I thought he was a better defensive prospect. I'm not sure if you felt the same way. I thought he was the best corner in the class, just straight up. And while I understand that you can't take a corner at second overall because you can't get the right value, I think that might have been his best start to the NFL, is by playing him on the spot that he's familiar with. Obviously, on offense, you're going to get more returns because you get the ball in your hand more. But it seems like when you're trying to develop Hunter as a receiver, right? Because he's still learning how to play receiver. I thought that was very evident. Even in college, he would just out athlete a lot of people at the college level. When you're still learning like the nuances of route running, spacing, beating press, all that kind of stuff, and you're making a practice and take meetings with the DB's room, take practice like reps on defense in practice. That just hinders your offensive development or your development as a wide receiver. So you can try to like gimmick it or hide the touch count all you want, but I think at the end of the day, specialization is what's going to be better for Hunter and for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know one of the sticking points from Hunter's camp in the draft was he can genuinely play both sides of the ball, and I believe he can, like down the road. But I think it would be better for everyone if you just focused on one side. And again, I think they drafted him to be a receiver, so I would mainly have him focus on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think it's an offense that could really use the juice as well. Like Brian Thomas hasn't been what he was last year. I think there's some weird injury stuff probably going on with him that the Jacksonville Jaguars haven't been very vocal about. And outside of him, really, there's not much in this receiving room. They signed De'Ami Brown, they have Parker Washington. Neither of those guys really move the needle for me. And I just think they need a little bit more juice offensively in this passing game. So that's where I would use him. And I think that slot role that he was playing in week one is perfect. Like he doesn't have to beat anybody in terms of press man coverage. It's a perfect spot where you can get the ball in his hands and just kind of let him run free in a way. It's a good spot for him to develop as a receiver while making an impact in year one. So that's what I would do. But I am just genuinely confused as to what the plan is for Hunter. And it's kind of one of the few let's call it weak spots of Liam Cohen's tenure so far in Jacksonville, because I think he's been inarguably just a very good coach so far from both the play calling and game management perspective. I've been very, very impressed with Liam Cohen. But I also think just it's a lot to manage trying to get Travis Hunter involved on both sides of the ball. If you're calling plays, if you're managing the game, everything in that sort of aspect, it's just very difficult to balance all of that. So I'm interested to see where it goes. If I had to guess, I think they're going to specialize him a little bit more on offense, maybe get him more involved in that way. I think that's maybe what Liam Cohen was hinting towards. But again, it's just not what you would want it to be through 4 games.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when do you think that they're going to concede and move him to one side, or if you think that they will concede and move him to just one side of the ball? Like if the returns continue to be poor from an efficiency standpoint, from giving up catches and stuff like that, they're going to have to do it eventually, right?
It's it's really difficult. It looks like they're gonna play him mostly at receiver, just based off of where the snap counts trended against San Francisco. But again, I it's hard to say because they're kind of secretive about how they go about things, because the general manager James Gladstone comes from the LA Rams, who are notoriously just, you don't know anything about their injuries or whatever until basically the game is playing. So it's interesting. I have to imagine, especially against a Chiefs defense that can be pretty stingy. I think that they'll use him in kind of that slot role against, I think, Trent McDuffie. So that would be a fun matchup, genuinely.
You know, another team that was famous for not disclosing their injuries were the Pete Carroll Seattle Seahawks. And I think that's a perfect transition into the game of the week segment, because my team is going to be, or my game rather, is going to be Tampa Bay going to Seattle for a matchup of pretty good NFC teams. This is like a are you good or not, or are you an elite NFC team or not? Prove it kind of game. Both the Buccaneers and the Seahawks are 3-1. I think the long rest for Seattle is going to be pretty big in this game, as Tampa Bay is still pretty injured. I think Mike Evans is going to miss this one. Igbuka was missing some reps in practice last week, even though he performed pretty well against the Eagles. Jackson Smith and Jigba on one end, and Emeka Egbuka on the other end. Chris Godwin, I think, might be back for this one too. So hopefully we can get some fireworks. And I think if Tristan Wirfs is back to not full health, but has taken the time off and has been not dealing with in-game reps every single week and practice reps, hopefully he can be a little fresh coming back this week and help get that O-line back into shape, since I can't remember which piece it was Luka Decky, right, that the Buccaneers lost early in the season. So getting Wirfs back should be huge for them.
You forgot to mention arguably the best part about this game, that both teams are going to be back.
Oh, that part. Yeah. Maybe the best matchup, uniform matchup of all time, or at least best retro matchup. I thought you were going to say it's you're leaving out the part that this was the Panthers quarterback room, and what was that, 2022, maybe 2021?
Yeah.
One of those years. That was left out on purpose, that part. But yeah, the uniform matchup, I'm a big uniform guy, big aesthetics guy. And the white creamsicles that the Buccaneers debuted like in week 2 or 3 are phenomenal. And then the Seahawks throwbacks are also very, very good. So looking forward to that one from a pure aesthetic standpoint.
Those Seahawks throwback uniforms might be just my favorite in the NFL. Period. Like they are so good. Um, yeah, like this matchup is so intriguing for so many reasons. You mentioned, you brought it up. I didn't bring it up. You did. Two former Panthers quarterbacks. Both have kind of gone on to revive their careers in different ways, kind of in a similar style, actually, like downfield passing, kind of gunslinger types. But um, yeah, I think I'm going to give the edge to Seattle just because of the amount of injuries for Tampa Bay. This is a team that probably won't have Bucky Irving either. It seems like it looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks. And JSN, Emeka Egbuka, just like two incredible former Ohio State receivers that kind of fill similar-ish roles on this offense. I know we're going to talk about Emeka Egbuka at some point throughout this podcast, just kind of on his own. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very, very fun game. I'm hoping that we get a pretty healthy Tampa Bay Buccaneers injury report throughout this week, just so we get a little bit more full strength. But yeah, this could really determine maybe the 3 seed in the NFC if you get these two teams winning their division, which very well could happen if Seattle performs as we expect them to.
JSN and Emeka Egbuka, you mentioned similar roles. They played almost the exact same role at different times at Ohio State, although I think they overlapped by one season there. And both really, really good young careers. I'm going to lean Seattle as well. I mentioned it earlier. They're on a long rest period, I think 11 days since they played the Thursday night game last week against the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. That was the first new rivalry jerseys thing. A lot of uniform talk in this episode, but I'm going to lean Seattle as well. The home advantage and just being able to rest up, I think, should be enough for them to get the win here.
Despite the fireworks, I think this is actually going to be a pretty low scoring game. Seattle defense is pretty good. Tampa defense, I'm actually really optimistic about. Obviously, we've talked ad nauseum about the run defense in particular, led by Vita Vea, but the corner room has kind of been revamped. Like Jacob Parrish has been awesome as a slot corner for this team. I think it was a 3rd-round pick this past year, and Benjamin Morrison has been pretty solid as well. I'm going to go with Seattle. Yeah, I just think that they're going to have the edge in terms of injuries, and I think that their defense is going to be able to take advantage of a pretty banged up Tampa Bay offense.
So they'll win the uniform bowl of the season, unless we get I don't know if they're doing the Oilers uniforms this year. It's the Titans, right, that have the rights to those. I don't know if they're going to do those, but those are up there too. And the orange creamsicles, I think, are my favorite uniforms that any NFL team has.
They're good. I used to not like them at all when I was younger, but they've definitely grown on me throughout the years, especially as we've kind of gotten just worse and worse regular NFL jerseys, honestly.
Yeah.
Like there's a few teams that just it's bad right now.
It's the Falcons, right? We can say it. If they just stuck to their retro style, it doesn't even need to be like their throwback uniforms, but like that style is so much better than what they have right now.
You got them. Like I wish they stuck with their retro style. You've got these Saints alternate jerseys that look like they're high school uniforms. Some of the throwbacks are also just kind of horrendous. Like the Giants had that one last year where it just was so mismatched and it didn't look very good.
You should look up what the Green Bay Packers are going to wear against the Panthers this year in Week 9. That's an interesting throwback one. That's the leather one. Yeah,
that's so bad. I hate that so much. It's rough. But moving on to another game in a pretty exciting late afternoon window. My game of the week pick is the Washington Commanders at the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a massive game for both of these teams. Justin Herbert, I've kind of talked about him being my leader in the clubhouse for the MVP. Um, Even with a loss of the New York Giants last week, he still looked pretty incredible. Quentin Johnston, by the way, he's really awesome. I think he's been playing at like a Pro Bowl level almost. I'm super happy for him after what was a really rough start to his NFL career. Very, very miscast by that staff in LA, but um, still completely in on the LA Chargers after a pretty close loss to the New York Giants. You've got a Commanders receiver room that's likely to be without Terry McLaurin against a Chargers DB room. So you've got the stoppable force versus the movable object. Um, and then Jaden Daniels coming back as well. He, I think, was a full participant in practice this week. That's going to be huge for an offense that really has struggled to, I think, run the ball. Like these receivers need to be elevated by Jaden Daniels if they want a chance to win this game.
100%. The I don't want to say the good thing, but the thing that makes the Terry McLaurin loss more palatable, I think, is that during week 1 and week 2 before Daniels got hurt, he was favoring Deebo Samuel. Like that was his go-to target. And however Cliff Kingsbury was scheming it up, this should be a really fun game. I think this is going to have more scoring than the game that we mentioned or that I just mentioned because the Chargers like to score. I think the Commanders are going to be back on track after a loss against the Atlanta Falcons. I don't like. I want to lean Chargers in this one, but I think this is a much closer one than I think Tampa Bay and Seattle was. Herbert's been phenomenal so far. If the Chiefs weren't losing, like I'd have Mahomes probably as my MVP candidate, but Herbert is like a very, very good player. Quentin Johnston, I was just looking to see where I would stack him up so far. I don't think I would put him at first team All Pro. Like that would be Puka, JSN, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you could make a real case that Quentin Johnston should be a second team All Pro should the season end at this point. And for him to be at that point, come so far from where he was as a rookie and even last year, it's just incredible. One of the better stories, maybe the best story so far in the young season. The defense, the thing that you brought up, the Commanders receivers versus the Chargers DBs, I kind of want to flip it to how the Chargers are going to attack this Washington Commanders defense. Aside from Dorrance Armstrong getting pressure and what's the nickel corner, Mike Sanders still flying around, I have very little confidence in the Commanders defense. I think Atlanta kind of showed the weaknesses last week. And I think the Chargers are really going to be able to take advantage of it. If you're a Lad McConkey fan or fantasy holder, I think this would be a huge get right game for him because there aren't a lot of good cover pieces on the back end of that Washington defense. And I think that all three or however many weapons Herbert wants to throw to in this game can all have good games against Washington.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty realistic path to just Washington not being able to fend all three of these receivers. Like they just don't have the coverage pieces to contend. Like it's Quentin Johnston has been it like legitimately a really, really good receiver. And it's not fake stats either. Like he's been making contested catches. He's been getting separation out of his breaks. He's been just really incredible on creating space downfield. Like he is genuinely played at a very, very high level, which I know is very shocking to a lot of people, myself included, considering how his career started. But like he is a very, very positive player right now. I I want to kind of throw it back to just to talk about the Commanders receivers and how they might attack this Chargers defensive back room, kind of on the other side of it. I think it's going to be a really interesting game for Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane. These are two receivers that, they've had their ups and downs so far throughout their career. McCaffrey didn't really get much playtime last year. Jalen Lane has been, I think, maybe more involved over the past 2 weeks than he was before that. But I think both of those guys have an opportunity to cement themselves as a potential starter, even when Terry McLaurin comes back. But it's an opportunity for both of those guys. they're kind of they're not established receivers at all, but they're both mildly exciting prospects to me still.
And both of them, Lane more so, are more explosive, I think, before the catch
Yeah.
than Samuel and Terry McLaurin. McLaurin's like a good at the catch point guy. We know how good Debo is in getting yards after the catch, but getting open downfield across the middle of the field before the catch, I think that's still been an issue for Washington. And if one of those guys or both of them can have big roles in doing that, I think that's going to be huge for the Commanders' offense moving forward because that was one of our sticking points about this team coming into the season was that their offense just like juice. If they can get some juice from one of those guys, I would feel a lot better as a Commanders fan now that Jaden Daniels is back.
Who are you gonna end up picking in this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the Chargers. I'm less conflicted about this game than I was about the previous one, but I think Chargers has the advantage in both matchups, if you will. I think their offense can move the ball effectively against the back end of that Commanders defense, and then I think their defense can provide pressure to the Commanders offense. The only thing I'll say is Jaden Daniels is like the great eraser in that aspect. He's very, very, or at least this rookie season, he was very, very good on third downs or on fourth and shorts and moving the ball, like getting out of the pocket to throw and converting with his legs. So that could be something, but I still think the Chargers can overwhelm them with their offensive game.
And it's been kind of a disappointing start to the season for Jaden Daniels. Like, obviously, he hasn't played the last two games, but against the Packers, I think that was maybe the worst game of his career, possibly. Like, it didn't look good. I think this is an opportunity for him to kind of right the ship and kind of steer things in the right direction moving forward in 2025. But just like you, I'm going to go with the LA Chargers as well. I just think that they have the advantage on offense pretty drastically. Like, I just don't have much faith in this Commanders DB room to keep up with those receivers. And I think Amari Hampton has kind of established himself as one of the better running backs in the NFL so far. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think it's going to be like a high 30s to low 30s type of game, like very, very high scoring. But yeah, I think LA is gonna win this one.
Yeah, hopefully it's high scoring. I don't think I have anybody in fantasy on those teams, but I think it's always fun to see the late windows have high scoring affairs. Like the last week we got it wasn't high scoring, but it was fun. The Colts and the Rams, right? Like
Yeah,
I just want good games, you know.
we got the Colts Rams, and then we got the Ashton Genty breakout last week.
Yeah.
So
And I wouldn't say the Chiefs and Ravens game was fun, but at least
no,
Mahomes was throwing again.
he was. Mahomes looked good. Xavier Worthy, by the way, incredible. But let's move on to the next segment that we have today. Let's talk about some rookies that have impressed us so far in the 2025 season. So we both came with two rookies. Um, let's hear your first rookie that you've been impressed by so far.
We mentioned him earlier, Emeka Egbuka from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been incredible to start his career. He leads the Bucks in targets, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns through 4 weeks. He has 4 touchdowns. I think he stepped up when Mike Evans got banged up throughout the first couple weeks, and obviously Chris Godwin hasn't been there, and I think he stepped up and filled that role. He's a very good yak receiver as well, which is interesting because he gets a lot of downfield passes. Like I thought he would be more of a over the middle kind of guy, kind of like some of the stuff you saw at Ohio State, but he was also shadowed by Marvin Harrison Jr. getting some of the downfield stuff, Jeremiah Smith getting some of the downfield stuff. So when he was able, excuse me, to step into that role, I think he's performed at a high level and there's just not much more to say. He's been incredible. He passed Tedero McMillan last week for the rookie lead in receiving yards, unfortunately. But I think he leads by like 4 or 5 yards. But he's just been phenomenal so far. And your take back in week 0, I guess, or the week leading up to the season that he would lead the Buccaneers in receiving yards just looks like it's going to be more and more correct as the weeks go on.
Yeah, he's been really good. Obviously, he had that super long touchdown against Philadelphia where it looked like both Eagles defensive backs tried to make a play on the ball, and both like missed it just barely. But yeah, I think it was like a 75 something yard touchdown. Obviously, very, very good player. I think he was one of the guys coming into the draft that was just talked about as having such a high floor. And I think I thought he would go higher in the draft because of that floor. Obviously, he falls to the Bucks. People were kind of confused because there's Godwin, there's Evans there, but would you say that he, to this point, is like already Tampa Bay's best receiver? I know Mike Evans is kind of getting up there, and Chris Godwin's coming off an injury, but Igbuka looks really incredible. Would you say he's their best receiver?
Absolutely, and I would go as far to say as he's been their best skill player. I know Bucky Irving he had an incredible rookie season, but Egbuka's really driven that offense through 4 weeks. And with Irving missing some time, I think Egbuka is going to continue to establish himself as like the go-to option in that offense.
Yeah, and they've already schemed up targets for him pretty regularly. Like he's gotten the ball on a lot of screens, on a lot of like first read actions. Like he's already kind of the engine of the passing game, which is really great to see for a rookie player. And his toughness too is incredible. I didn't necessarily think that he would be somebody that has this much juice after the catch, but he's good at breaking tackles. He's good at kind of shifting defenders and kind of making more out of these receptions than what he probably should be getting. Um, just a really good receiver. And like you said, he's played on the outside most of the season so far, which is contrary to what I thought he would actually play as kind of a slot, intermediate type of receiver. I know many people like to call it kind of a power slot, right? But yeah, he's been really, really incredible. Probably the best rookie receiver to date, barring some Tedero McMillan drops and Bryce Young overthrows. But that we'll see how that progresses. But Emeka Egbuka looks to be a future, if not current, top 10 receiver in the NFL.
And just real quick before we move on to your guy, the slot only I don't know, archetype in college over the last, we'll say, half decade or so has been proven wrong at almost every turn as it pertains to first rounders, right?
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson was first. He's the best receiver in the league now, in my opinion. JSN with Seattle was next. And when he started, he was slot only, but he also had DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett flanking him. And now he lines up everywhere. And Egbuka already is kind of shattering that narrative. So I'm not saying for you or for me, but as a whole, when we evaluate like the slot only receivers that come from really good passing offenses, it might be worth it to just kind of expect them to play outside, and already be good at it.
I think particularly when you have these bigger slot receivers too, like you have your Jordan Addisons, your Zay Flowers, where
You're talking like
they're
thicker, like
yeah, like
more
just
muscle, yeah.
taller, more muscle, that sort of like bigger frame, right?
Mhm.
I think those types of slot receivers that end up going in the first round, a lot of times when they're playing in the slot only in college, it's just because that's the position that's most advantageous to the offense that they're in. But I do think that there's some guys like Addison, like Zay Flowers, who do benefit from playing the slot in the NFL. But yeah, Egbuka being such a like tough physical receiver, it works in the slot, but it's also like he's been incredibly impressive with his contested sideline catches as well. Like he looks the entire part of a outside receiver as well.
Yeah, the next one up is going to be Jeremy Bernard, by the way, Alabama. Very similar mold to Egbuka.
Some more Alabama propaganda.
Had to throw it in there.
um, so my first player that I really want to talk about is Armand Membu for the New York Jets. He was, I think it was the 7th overall pick. Um, I think he was the one right before Tedero McMillan. He's had no penalties through the first 4 games, and he's really helped this Jets offense become one of the most explosive running games in the NFL. He looks like kind of a cornerstone of an offensive line, like an all pro type of player, if you will. I think he's been pretty easily by far the most impressive offensive lineman, rookie offensive lineman in the NFL so far this season. Um, there were a lot of concerns about him being a little bit undersized coming into the NFL. There were some concerns about the arm length, the measurables, everything. I think he, at every opportunity so far this season, has kind of dispelled those rumors. And you could even say that with Will Campbell as well, who's also been impressive. But, Armand Membu's gone up against some pretty impressive competition so far. He, frankly, dominated TJ Watt in week one against the Steelers. Like, this Jets team, that looked like the peak of Justin Fields and the running game, and Armand Mempu was a really big part of that. And he's gone up against some really stingy fronts as well, between the Bills, the Buccaneers, the Dolphins. Like, those are not easy edge rooms to deal with if you're a rookie offensive tackle in the NFL. And at every moment, I know it hasn't been like the peak of what we saw of him against TJ Watt, but at every moment he's looked bare minimum like a solid starter. And to get that from a rookie offensive tackle, I think is incredibly impressive.
I think he's been phenomenal. You could maybe say he's already their best offensive lineman on that Jets offensive front. Uh, in the pass game, like my concerns with him coming into the year were in the pass game, and I thought he's performed very, very well. Like you mentioned, I think he had 27 reps against TJ Watt, zero pressures allowed in that game. You're going up against guys like Greg Rousseau, the following game, Hassan Reddick, Yaya Diaby, and then all the edge rushers on the Dolphins front, right? Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb. Like, he's not going up against nobodies, like you're saying, and he's performed very, very, very well. Excuse me. And then the run blocking too, already at a high level. Any team that has Justin Fields is going to be a good rushing team, but I think they've been more than what I expected from the rush, and Aram Membu's a big, big part of that. It's going to be interesting because the Jets aren't a very good team overall, especially on offense. But if he continues to be like a road grader in the run game and stuff like that, I think he's going to be on people's radars for all rookie team, that kind of thing. I don't know if he can win the Protector of the Year award because we've talked about that they're probably going to give that to an established player. But he's been very, very good so far. And maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, he can be someone that's in contention for that Protector award.
I think if you did a redraft right now, he would probably be maybe the first non-quarterback offensive player taken in the draft. And that says like so much about what he's done already in the NFL. Just a very all-around solid tackle. I think if like offensive linemen were seriously considered for offensive rookie of the year, he would have as good of a case as basically anybody.
Well, other than the guy we just talked about,
Yes.
and Emeka Egbuka, and maybe the guy that we're about to talk about, he hasn't been nearly as impactful when it comes to the stat sheet, but I think Tyler Warren's been phenomenal so far. And this was a guy that I was a little bit lower on compared to you and Steve at the 2 point conversion, but he's been incredible so far. He leads the Colts in receiving yards and in receptions of 20 or more yards. That's not something I would expect from him because I thought that he was gonna be like the safety valve guy, but he's taken the ball and run down the field. He's pretty high in yak on their team. He's been like the go-to player in immediate route situations for Daniel Jones, which I think has been huge for not only his own growth but for Daniel Jones's ability to play winning football as well. Jones had no turnovers up until this past week against the Rams, and Warren's been a big part of that. I thought his blocking is also improved from what I saw at Penn State. At Penn State, he was just like bigger and stronger than everyone, quite frankly. Being a fifth-year player, he's already an adult, and he just kind of like moved people with his size. But I think technically he's been a lot more refined. And then you jotted down some stats here, like second in yak among tight ends, which frankly is incredible. I didn't think he had that in him like to start already, and he's just been very, very good so far.
Yeah, sixth in reception EPA among tight ends as well. Like, this is already an elite player at a position where usually these guys, even the first round picks, typically take a few years to develop before they return value, which is why a lot of people criticize early tight end picks. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the blocking. He was kind of typecast as a good blocker in college, which I don't think he was that spectacular
Yeah,
outside of just winning with his athleticism, like you mentioned. Um, but yeah, like in the NFL, they use him in 11 personnel, like just down blocking, and it looks significantly better than what it did at Penn State, just from a technique perspective and from a power standpoint. Like he's genuinely a really good blocker at both the point of attack, whether they're pulling him, whatever it may be. He looks like he's never gonna be like your elite super high end blocking tight end, but to get that sort of we'll call it effort alongside what he gives you in the passing game, that's really really valuable and something that teams they value quite a bit. And like just from a receiving standpoint, he's incredibly advanced as a route runner compared to most rookie tight ends. Like I said, most of these guys kind of come in and they have to develop a little bit before they look like how Tyler Warren does. But Warren, I think there's an argument to be made that he's like already a top five ish tight end in the NFL right now.
and to your point about development, he was selected 14th overall, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. 4 picks earlier, another tight end, right? Colston Loveland has yielded far from the same results so far, and Loveland was heralded as the more refined player in college. Even at the end of the cycle there, and I think this was a little bit of fatigue. People were like kind of switching Warren and Loveland, and in the draft it did end up that way, but it's clear that Warren, I think, had the body and the reps and all the stuff that he's done or did at Penn State, and that translated a bit quicker. Like it's also tough, I think, in a Ben Johnson offense to be an immediate producer at tight end. I know they had Laporta, but it seems like Komet's kind of the first tight end among the Bears' weapons. So hopefully Loveland's able to work it out down the line. But for Warren to not only be the 14th pick, but the second tight end drafted and immediately producing like that. It's like it's weird to say because Brock Bowers just had the best rookie season ever for a tight end, but that's not the norm, right? That was rare. And for Tyler Warren to be having not a comparable season, but still a very, very good season already, I think is very impressive. And that's why I have him here.
Yeah, Warren feels like the type of player that I think just gets overthought a little bit
Yeah,
just because he was so dominant at Penn State this past. Like he was probably the most productive pass catcher in college football last year among the bigger programs outside of maybe Jeremiah Smith. But yeah, he was an incredible player there. He dominated both physically and with technique, and that's carrying over to the NFL. So I'm super excited to continue to watch him grow. I know he was an older player. I think that's maybe where some of the hesitation came from on Tyler Warren, but very, very good player so far.
do you think that all the unique stuff he did at Penn State, from taking the designed handoffs to snapping the ball on certain instances, do you think that's played a role? Or do you think that that was just part of the bag that he had and he's already just a good player?
I think it's hard to say because a lot of that stuff you could say, oh, he was schemed open. Oh, they were designing touches for him rather than it being like true route wins. Um, but I do think that some of that versatility has helped him early on, particularly with the ball in his hands. Like you mentioned, like he's second in yak among tight ends throughout the entire NFL. I think only I believe it's Tucker Kraft is above him so far, and Tucker Kraft has been in like maybe the best tight end in the NFL so far this season. So I do think it's actually helped with a lot of the on ball stuff with Tyler Warren, just him being able to generate more yards than maybe what's schemed up to him.
Agreed.
So the next and final rookie that we're going to talk about, I think it has to be Amarian Hampton. He has been awesome so far this year. I know there was a lot of hesitation after the Friday night game in Brazil against the Kansas City Chiefs, but including that game, his like stats have been phenomenal. He has plus 73 yards rushing over expected. That's fifth in the NFL. He's averaging, excuse me, he has 2.5 rushing EPA. That's eighth in the NFL. He has a 44.4% rushing success rate. That's 14th in the NFL. And he's doing all of this behind an offensive line that, frankly, does not like it's not very good. Like it's terrible, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like you've got Bradley Bozeman, you've got Trey Pipkins, you've got I don't even know who the left tackle is now that Joe Alt's going to be out. But this offensive line is just awful. I know it's Greg Roman and he's going to force feed Amari and Hampton no matter what. But this team, I think, is like it's going to rely on him down the stretch, and he's only gotten better every single game. There was a rep against the New York Giants, who, it's not a very good running defense. They have, not a lot of size. Even Dexter Lawrence, I think, struggles against the run a little bit, although he's like a generational pass rusher from the nose position. But there was a rep against the Giants where he broke legitimately like 8 tackles and got 17, 18 yards on a play that most running backs are getting like 2 yards. He just kept moving down the field. It was incredibly impressive. It was a little bit like the old beast mode highlight, except, it's not a touchdown. It's like a 17-yard gain, but he's just dragging defenders to that 18 yards. So incredibly impressive player. I think he's going to continue to grow, and I think he is already one of the better running backs in the NFL.
With all the offensive line lumps and woes so far, you didn't even mention that Rashawn Slater isn't going to play it down this season.
Yeah.
Who was their starting left tackle? He probably is going to be a starting right tackle moving forward, but he's a very good player too that hasn't been able to block for Hampton. And I think following that like tough start, it's your first ever game as an NFL player. He's been nothing short of phenomenal. You could probably say he's been the best rookie running back thus far. And we have a good article on the 2-point conversion written by Evan, one of our contributors, about why the running game doesn't work in Las Vegas. And it took an even bigger hit with Colton Miller. I think he's out for the season, if I'm not mistaken. So Ashton Genty's stocks have never been lower, unfortunately. But for Amari and Hampton, I think he's improved week over week. And like you said, Greg Roman loves to spam the run. I don't know if I don't want to say the passing offense isn't sustainable because Herbert's playing very well. All the receivers are playing well, but down the stretch in tight games or like division games down the stretch, that Greg Roman's going to run the ball a lot, and Amari and Hampton's going to get the brunt of it. So far, the early returns have been excellent. I know both of us had Hampton as first round grades in this past draft, and you only get like 15 tops first round grades, and to have not only Genty in there, but another running back in Hampton. We were very high on him, and I think he's delivered, or he's met our expectations so far.
Yeah, Hampton felt like the ultimate like do you know ball type of running back a little bit. But yeah, very, very good player. And we've talked a lot about the draft and kind of these hits so far, but we have an actual mock draft that we did, top 10 mock draft that we've done so far. Jacob, you took the odds, I took the evens. We're going to talk about some of these players a little bit more in depth. Obviously, there's a few quarterbacks we're going to talk about, just some of the high-end elite guys. But yeah, we have a top 10 mock draft. Jacob, who did you end up selecting for? Actually, I'm gonna tell the order first of all. It's the Tankathon order based off of the current NFL standing. So please do not get mad that we have the Ravens with the 6th overall pick. But the order is the Saints, Jets, Titans, Browns, Dolphins, Ravens, Raiders, Panthers, Giants, and Texans in that order. So, Jacob, kick it off. Who did you have with the first overall pick for the New Orleans Saints?
I know you are going to like it, but if this happens in real life, you're not going to like it because he's going to the New Orleans Saints. I have Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback, as the first overall pick right now. I did boost him a little bit because I know you're a pretty big fan, but I think what he did in State College, sort of Penn State plays in Pennsylvania, on a night road game It's his second year as a starter, but his true freshman year at UCLA, it's like kind of toilet tape. You watch it once and flush it. It wasn't the best. But at Oregon, his first year starting, going across the country, night game. It's a whiteout game. They all the students have their white shirts on. They're playing the really loud music that you can play in EA college football. And he went in there and won it in double overtime. The first half, I thought he was a bit slow, but he improved throughout the game. I think Moore excels at making plays outside of structure. I think he's good at avoiding rush and manipulating the defensive rush to move or not move out of the way, but get how do I say it? Advantageous throwing lanes. I thought they didn't have Evan Stewart in this game, who you could say is probably their best or most talented wide receiver. And Dante Moore still put on a show. They won a double overtime. I think he's improved every week, and he has the traits as well. It's not just the tape. I believe he's 6'1", a little over 210 pounds, and I think he has the makings of being an NFL quarterback. But I need to see a little bit more. The early returns, though, have been pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think he's accurate. I think he moves very well throughout the pocket. Cold-blooded, like no moment seems too big for him, whether it's a pocket collapsing or, like you said, if it's a third or fourth down in state college against, a whiteout crowd. Like, he to me is so far at least the guy in this draft class, at least from a quarterback perspective. But there's several guys that we're going to talk about over the next few picks. I think that Dante Moore, for me though, especially after like week 2, really started to establish himself as maybe the prize of this draft class. I do have a take though for you. I know you have him mocked to the Saints here, but maybe an aside. I would personally take Spencer Rattler right now over Bryce Young if I were starting a franchise.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Are we doing grade that take? I'm gonna give that one an F. Even with the tape so far throughout the season, and I know we're probably both a bit biased for our guys here, but Spencer Rattler to me is just pretty erratic. From what I've seen, like even going back to last year, I'm not super impressed with what he's been able to do. I will say, since Kellen Moore's come to New Orleans, he looks a lot more stable. I think that's more of a Kellen Moore product than a Spencer Rattler product. I don't know about that one. Bryce Young's probably pretty low on like the franchise starter guys as far as the young QBs go, but for me, I think Spencer Rattler is even lower.
Man, I love what I've seen from Spencer Rattler. I know we talked about it a few weeks ago, but it was just a quick aside. But let's get into the second pick. I went with Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana, for the New York Jets with the second overall pick. He, to me, we've talked about this before, I think off air. He, to me, is very Jared Goff-like in the sense that, he's going to win with his timing. He's going to win with his accuracy. I think there's a lot of NFL-level throws. He doesn't shy away from the middle of the field. There was a play in this game. I forget who they were playing against, but
Iowa.
Iowa, that's right. There was a play in this game where he slid the ball between two defenders on the sideline to a 9 route from the receiver. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful throw that a lot of NFL quarterbacks can't even make. So Fernando Mendoza, I know he wasn't on like a lot of NFL radars previous to this year, but he looks very much in that CJ Stroud type of early round quarterback mold to me.
I like it. I think the Goff comparison is head on and complimentary. Like it's not
it's
bad
not
comparison.
derogatory at all. Like if you can
Yeah.
get Jared Goff with a top 5 pick, you probably do it.
Jared Goff was a number 1 pick
Oh
in his
yeah.
class. It's not an insult to say that. He's one of the again, the system manager thing I think is thrown out as an insult. But that's what QBs are nowadays. Like the gunslingers don't really exist anymore. I know we talked about Darnold
Yeah.
and Baker, but they also play within structure. That's the way to win in today's NFL. And I think Mendoza is like the perfect quarterback for that. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I think I need to see a little bit more from him. I thought he played well sparingly against Iowa, but that's also been the best defense he's faced so far. So I like that one a lot. The Goff comparison's good. For Dante Moore, I think Alabama Bryce Young is a fair comparison. Maybe like
Okay.
early career Deshaun Watson, like in Houston, I think is another good one where he was getting the Texans rolling. But very good QBs, both of them so far. I have the Titans at 3, and I'm going to go Ruben Bain Jr., the edge rusher from Miami. I think it's too soon to bail on Cam Ward, even if you have a top pick. That team is still just very, very bad. And I think Ruben Bain has been the best player in college football so far. Just been a game wrecker from the edge for Miami. They had a bye week this week, but they go to Tallahassee in a grudge match against Florida State this week. I know a lot of people are mad that game day isn't there, but that's going to be a good game. I think that's a night game this week, and he's going to be able to show it off against a QB that can run in Castellanos down there in Florida State. Ruben Bain's just a monster. I'm not sure that there's a fair league comparison. Maybe like Trey Hendrickson's a really hard comparison because that's like one of the best pass rushers, but I think he has that juice to him, and I think he could be an immediate plus defender once he's drafted.
Yeah, because he's kind of a he's almost like kind of a power guy too.
Yeah,
Ruben Bain is. I'm trying to think of like a
like
good.
I don't want to say Miles Garrett and stuff like that because I think
Yeah,
it's always weird to give those kind of comps. Um,
maybe like a mid-career Rashawn Gary almost. But I
yeah,
think he's
I think
more
he's a little
like
bit bigger
twitched up.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's more twitched up than what Gary has been. Um,
What are we in year 4 for Trayvon Walker? Maybe year
yeah,
2 or 3
yeah,
Trayvon Walker. I don't know
yeah.
if he's going to be a 10-0 Roz guy, but he's athletic enough in his own right.
It's like a different type of athleticism, I think.
Yeah,
Like the get off, the speed to power, everything. I'm a big fan of Ruben Bain. I think he is probably going to be the first non-quarterback taken in this draft, and at every moment for Miami this year, he's looked very, very good. I do wonder if the Titans just straight up consider like taking whatever the top pass catcher is, no matter where they're picking, because their number one receiver right now is Alec Ayuminor. And they've got to get Cam Ward some sort of weapon. So I wonder if, like, they're picking third. Ruben Bain probably goes with one of the first 2 picks, and they take maybe Jordan Tyson or something. We don't have Tyson on this mock draft, just a quick spoiler. But I do think that he's a very, very good receiver prospect.
yeah. I think if they were to, I guess, delineate from Bain if he's not there, I
Maybe
would
trade
go
back.
trade back or offensive line.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a couple tackles here in a second, but that offensive line's early returns have not been great. And as good as Tyson is, I wouldn't put him in a tier that I had Tedero McMillan in last year, and he was the 8th overall pick, right? That's like you have to respect value still at some
Yeah.
point.
I have the next pick. It's the Cleveland Browns, and I'm going with Lenore Sellers. Obviously, I think that this Browns team, when they made the move to trade back from the 2nd overall pick and pass on Travis Hunter, that was the moment that they decided to take a quarterback in the 2026 draft. And Lenore Sellers, to me, is the best one available here. Very physically gifted. I think that a lot of the processing stuff is going to come around. A lot of the accuracy stuff is going to come around. Um, Throughout his tenure at South Carolina, he's just continued to get better and better and better. And I think that that's going to continue throughout the remainder of this season. There's going to be some ups and downs, but I think, it's Sellers. It's kind of the thing with, and this is going to be a very, very poor comparison. But I think the floor of what you're going to get with him is like Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson, where no matter what, you have a top 5-10 rushing attack when he's your quarterback. But, I think early on, it's going to be a lot of like living and dying by the deep ball with him. I think down to down, again, he's going to get better and better. I think I've been pretty impressed with a lot of his accuracy early on. He's been avoiding negative plays significantly better in 2025 than he did in 2024. So that's, a big part of his game. But he's been sailing some balls early in the season. And I do think that he's going to end up a top 5 pick if he declares. But again, it's just up and down with Sellers. If he's consistent towards the back half of the 2025 season, there's a real argument to be made that he's the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah, I think you're buying the upside and hoping on the consistency, like you're talking about with
Yeah.
Sellers. He has improved throughout this year. Let me tell you, you already know who the next 5 games are, but I want to reiterate who they are for the audience. So the next game, they have a bye this week. South Carolina does. Their next game is their next game's a grudge match at LSU, number 13 LSU.
Yeah.
Then they host number 5 Oklahoma and a quarterback we'll talk about in a second. Then they host number 10 Alabama. That's the homecoming game. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to have Alabama as your homecoming game. Then they go to number 4 Ole Miss. Then they have another bye week. Then they go to College Station, number 6 Texas A&M, and then they have Coastal and Clemson, which I think are pretty favorable at this point. But you're going to need him to improve throughout the season as he faces tougher competition, and I think it's going to be a big, like, kind of crucible moment for him if they can. You're not going to go through those 5 games and come out unscathed, but I think if he can improve and settle down in the pocket and hit some, he has the arm to hit the deep ball, but like puts a little bit more touch on him, I would feel so much better about him as a prospect, and he would be somebody that, like you're saying, we would replace Dante Moore's name with as the number 1 QB in the draft. But the Browns also, like, it's also a pretty unfavorable spot to put a quarterback in, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Like they don't have much infrastructure on that Cleveland Browns team. They have another first round pick, so good for them. But yeah, the touch thing that you mentioned, I think, is a very good point because there's a lot of short and intermediate throws where it kind of reminds me of early career Cam Newton, where he would just throw the ball like it's almost like a fastball, like 90-mile-an-hour pitch, kind of, despite it being like, 10 air yards away. So he's got to settle down just a little bit. I think it's nice that it's not nice, but like South Carolina is pretty much already out of the playoff, basically, assuming that they lose any other game this season. So I think there's a little bit less pressure in that respect. But yeah, he needs to settle down, play his game. But I think he is going to end up being a first round pick.
I agree. A name that people may not think of when I thought of him in relation to his pocket feel and still athletic ability was Daniel Jones, who I think was an underrated athlete when he was drafted, number 6 overall. Very good runner. Sellers, I think, has the stronger arm, but the same feel in the pocket. Like, Jones has improved in the pocket, and you can see he can play at a high level. So I think that if Sellers gets in a good system, he can be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So I had number 5, the Miami Dolphins. Talk about bad infrastructures for QBs. I'm going to go John Mateer, the quarterback from Oklahoma. There's been mixed reporting about when he's going to come back from the injury on the thumb on his throwing hand. Some people are saying like 6 weeks. I saw a report, I think I sent it to you, from Matt Zenitz, who's one of the best college football reporters who works for 247 Sports. He said he might be back for the Red River game, which is in not this weekend, but 3 weekends, October 18th, I believe. If that's the case, that's going to be electric because I think John Mateer has been one of the most fun QBs to watch so far. Baker Mayfield is a name that comes to mind when I watch him. I think he makes the plays with his arms and his legs. Out of all the quarterbacks that I mentioned that I'm talking about in the article I'm writing, he leads in passing yards and has 11 touchdowns, and that's playing hurt in a lot of games and still playing fewer games than most of the quarterbacks. I think he can produce. It just needs to be more consistent. Like, that's one of the marks with a lot of the QBs that we're going to talk about is down to down consistency. But I think he has the like, winning trait or whatever is such a weird thing to try to quantify. But I think he
Is
makes
it,
the plays when you need him to make. He's like an innate winner, I guess, and that's a hard thing to try to project. But I've seen it this season.
the it factor? Yeah.
Yeah, the it factor, sure.
Yeah, I know you're very high on John Mateer. I know I'm a little bit lower. I have him as more of a like day 2 kind of quarterback right now, but I can absolutely see a scenario in which he's, a first round top 10 type of quarterback, assuming the consistency comes a little bit more around. They design like so many different run plays for him. It's kind of hilarious, but he's got an incredible NFL caliber arm, super talented. It's just, yeah, the down to down consistency. He's like, to me, if Baker Mayfield was like 10% more inconsistent, which is crazy to think because Baker is already pretty inconsistent. But yeah, very, very exciting player. You probably know much more about John Mateer than I do, but I am like very intrigued to see how his season progresses and if he's able to become a like top 10 draft pick.
I mean, you talk about Baker, another number one draft selection there, and that was in a class with guys like at the time were probably better prospects or higher graded prospects like Darnold. Josh Rosen was a super highly graded prospect,
Oh yeah.
and then two future MVPs in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who are both first rounders in that class. So it's going to come down to like taste for a lot of these teams, but a lot of teams buy into the it factor, the winner, the winning mantra, and he's taken Oklahoma to a spot that they haven't been to since they've joined the SEC, and frankly, they've been doing it against good, decent to good competition so far. Michigan's a top 5 defense to me, and Auburn, while their offense is just horrible, they have some good defensive pieces like Keldrick Falk. So I've been impressed so far. Hopefully, he gets back on the field sooner rather than later, so we can see more of what he can do this season.
So I have the next pick, Baltimore Ravens, sixth overall. First of all, it's crazy that we like they're this high in the draft order at this point in the season, and it might get even higher based off of their upcoming schedule. But I have them selecting Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle, right tackle, I believe, out of Utah. Um, they desperately need offensive line help. Like I think it's fair to say Roger Rosengarten has been disappointing. The interior line outside of Linderbaum has been disappointing, and they just need all sorts of help, really, on both sides of their trench play. Like their interior defensive line is pretty horrendous. I considered Peter Woods here, which didn't happen, but yeah, it's tough. I feel bad just because Lamar is just kind of having to make things work behind that line right now, and you'd assume that Fano would maybe help with that just a little bit.
Yeah, and it sounds weird to say when you say someone's 6'6", 309, and that's a little bit light, but he moves very, very well on that
Yeah,
right side of the ball. And I know they locked in Ronnie
that's a
Stanley.
it's a
Yeah,
combination that Ravens team really likes too.
yeah, absolutely. And the Todd Monken era, absolutely. I know they locked down Ronnie Stanley for the next few years, so maybe they are more inclined to take that right tackle. And I think Fano's as deserving as anybody in this class. Aside from the Texas Tech game, like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, pretty flawless record to this point, and like the Ravens just need some help either side of
Yeah.
the line there. And I wouldn't be mad if, or I probably would be mad that they continue to stack talent if they got Peter Woods, but you got to protect Lamar Jackson, and the offensive line is the way to do that.
You have the Raiders with the next pick.
Yes, and number 7, the Raiders. That's going to be the Peter Woods spot. Max Crosby's been on another. He seems to improve every single year, and he's been crazy to start the year. And then outside of him, like you kind of pray for that defense. I know Caleb Williams threw an interception in that game, but you know who got it? It was Max Crosby forced it. You know, they need some more help along that defensive front, and I considered offensive line here, but I think Peter Woods is still a very good prospect. The effort has to come around, like we mentioned, but he's still one of the better players. I saw a stat today that Clemson's defensive line still has the quickest time to pressure in FBS, which seems like alien to me when you watch them. But if they're still able to get fast pressures and Peter Woods is able to play at the level we know he can play, he's going to be a top 10 pick in next April.
Yeah, we know the ceiling's there. We know that he's an incredibly capable player. It is funny to me that this team moved on from Christian Wilkins after a single year and then would draft Peter Woods like shortly thereafter. But he's very, very much worth the selection. And like you mentioned, this Raiders team needs help all over the defensive line and really just the entire defense as a whole. I know I have my stocks in oh god, what's his name? I can't even remember the Iowa State corner that went third round. His name
Darian Porter.
That's right. Yeah, I don't even know if he's played a lot so far this year, but I have my stocks in him. I think that they're going to draft defense just because they basically have to. And honestly, like they should have taken Armand Membu above Ashton Genty just based off of the early returns of the offense as well. But there are many, many holes on this Raiders team, and I think they have to address one of the lines with it.
It's so interesting that the Raiders can't run on the right side, even with Genty, and Armand Membu is a phenomenal run blocker already. It's like the
Yeah.
butterfly effect there.
I think they might regret that one just a little bit. And I know Gentie's incredible, but Armand Membu is a phenomenal right tackle. I had the Panthers with the next pick, and I had them taking Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. The Panthers need a lot of different things. I think if they were picking in the top 5, it would probably be a quarterback that I have for them, but um, I'm not going to select one here with 4 already off the board. Sadiq gives them kind of a middle of the field target that they don't really have. Obviously, you have an outside threat with Tetairoa McMillan. You have another kind of outside receiver with Xavier Legette if he improves, but I really think this team needs another secondary receiving weapon, and I think Kenyon Sadiq is as good of a pass catcher from a middle of the field, from an after the catch standpoint as you can possibly get at the tight end position. I know there's a lot of defenders on the board that could absolutely help this defense. Keldrick Falk, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese are probably the 3 that I would consider here, but there's so many holes on this team, and I think Kenyon Sadiq would bring an element to the offense that it does not have and is clearly missing through the first 4 weeks of the season.
So this is probably where we're going to disagree the most. To be clear, in an article I wrote last week about early positional boards, I want to make sure I have the numbers right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I had 14 early blue chip players, and Sadiq was one of them. Like, I'm very high on Sadiq. He's far and away the best tight end in this class, and I think the second best pass catcher overall. Like, it's more of a projection because he doesn't have the raw numbers yet, but I think he's a very, very good player. But if the Panthers find themselves in the top 10 again, I got to go trenches or I got to go quarterback, right? Or like the rare, like Caleb Downs, I guess, is a rare exception, but there are there's offensive linemen available. I think you want to plan for Taylor Moton's eventual retirement. You mentioned Keldrick Falk, I think, is an option. Arvell Reese and you could say CJ Allen too, the linebackers from Ohio State and Georgia, respectively, are both playing at a super high level right now. But Sadiq is also one of the 14 best prospects in the class to me to this point. You said you didn't want to do another quarterback. You don't want to replace Bryce Young with a certain Alabama quarterback that might be going up the ranks.
Look, if Ty Simpson proves himself to be like a bona fide first round quarterback, I'd consider it, but I can't do it yet. Can't do it yet. But if we did like a full first round, he would probably sneak in at some point, maybe to the Rams or something. But yeah, I like Kenyon Sadiq as like a secondary pass catcher and somebody that could really grow as a middle of the field threat.
Yeah, I see the vision, especially with McMillan, and if
It's
Leggett is
really
able to come around, like it's a very cohesive
yeah,
group. Like they all do things that they build off of each other there. I had my final pick was the 9th pick. That is the New York Giants. It should come as no surprise that I'm taking an offensive lineman for them. If they want to like progress with Jackson Dart, want to get more wins, I'm going to go offensive lineman Francis Mauigoa, the right tackle from Miami. I think he's the best offensive lineman that's eligible for the draft right now. Just has been a dominant lockdown force on that right side for Miami. We haven't talked about Carson Beck a lot, and I know he's been really accurate and kind of clinical outside of that Florida game. Mauigoa is like a big reason as to why that's the case. He provides a lot of time, locks down that right side, probably goes against Ruben Bain every day in practice. That's not a bad sparring partner there. I think he could be an immediate starter on the right side in New York, where I don't even know who the starting right tackle is there.
It's not Evan Neal. Is it
Nope.
like Jermaine Illuminor or something like that?
It might be. Let me get our lads.
John Michael Schmitz, by the way, is genuinely one of the worst centers I've ever seen play football in the NFL.
Yeah, that was a miss for me. That I was quite high, like top 50 that year.
I was very high on John Michael Schmitz, but he just does not have the anchor that you need to play center. Unfortunately,
it is Jermaine Illuminor. The backup is James Hudson, the guy that had like 4 straight penalties in that Cowboys game.
Wow.
But, so that's who you're. All due respect to those players as well. They are NFL players. That's who Francis Mauigoa would be competing against for starting reps.
I'm gonna group this next pick kind of in line with this Giants. The Texans, I have them taking Caleb Lomu, the tackle out of Utah, the second tackle that I've taken from Utah in this draft. But again, just the Texans need any sort of offensive line help, and I think it's like these three and Proctor who are kind of like the first round mocked guys at the current moment, but yeah, it's like after that, it gets really, really thin on the offensive line in particular. If you're looking for a tackle, I think what's his name? The Auburn center Connor Liu is also pretty good, but again, that's more of an interior guy. I think he's going to be a center only, just based off of how he's played at Auburn. But yeah, I'm going to group that in here as well. Texans just need any sort of offensive line help.
Funnily enough, I actually think Alabama's center is better than the Auburn center, Parker Brailsford. Just incredible protection collar, no penalties, all that kind of thing. But Caleb Lomu, another great pick. The other Utah tackle, like you talked about, they're starting Ariante Ursary, the Texans, that is, on the left side of that offensive line. If I'm not mistaken, he's been taking the starting left tackle reps. And if it doesn't work out there, I think he could be a very, very good guard in the NFL. So you got to continue to attack that offensive line, not only for CJ Stroud's sake, but for the running game's sake as well. We saw, we'll talk about Woody Marks here in a second. He had a very good game. And imagine if he could run behind an actually good offensive line, how much better that would be.
It would be the most Nick Casario thing ever to trade this pick and then take like whatever the second type, like I don't know, Eli Stowers or something with the late first round pick. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, just trading down and taking yet another pass catcher, it would be such a Nick Casario thing. But that's going to do it for the mock draft. I know we had a few guys that didn't make the cut: Caden Proctor, Keldrick Faulk, Caleb Downs, Avion Terrell, probably the best corner in this draft to me. But we're going to get to the next segment. Grade that take. Jacob, what is your first take for this upcoming weekend of NFL games?
So this is going to be my apology for, I guess, not taking Rattler above Bryce Young earlier. But my take is that the Saints are going to get their first win of the season this week at home against the New York Giants. The Saints have been like sneakily close in some of these games. I know the Bills ultimately fried them at the end there, but the Saints were keeping it close in the first half. They had some stuff cooking. Kellen Moore, I think, has the offense playing at a high level compared to the talent that is on that roster. The offensive line, I don't think is as bad as I was expecting. I thought they were going to be like the 32nd best offensive line, and it's been closer to 25. And then on the Giants side of the ball, they won, but it was a close game. They had plenty of issues. Dart wasn't able to press the ball downfield, and part of that was due to the fact that Malik Neighbors got injured early in that game. Obviously, Neighbors won't be in this game. The Giants also allowed 6 sacks in that game. The Saints front isn't nearly as imposing as the Chargers, but maybe they can make some stuff happen. Funny wrinkle, their defensive coordinator is Brandon Staley, I believe, and he was the Chargers head coach. So a little wrinkle there, but I believe I could be wrong. It's
true.
Like there's a reason I took a tackle for the Giants in that mock draft. Like the O-line hasn't been good. Andrew Thomas has also been in and out. But overall, I think the Saints are going to get their first win. It has to happen at some point. I hope it's not against the Panthers in week 10 or whatever. So I'm going to say it's against the Giants this week.
I'm going to give this an A. I think that it's a really good take. I also have the Saints winning this game. I just think that a lot of times after you get a bad team gain some sort of momentum, it's almost like they think they're better than they are in some sense. And it's kind of like a back to reality type of situation. And I think that might happen with the New York Giants, where the Saints have been competitive. Like they were competitive with the Buffalo Bills last week. And really, I think the score didn't show just how close that game was. I think the Saints get their first win as well. And I'm higher on Spencer Rattler than most, as you can probably tell, but I'm going to give this an A.
Yeah, it has to happen at some point. The fact that Rattler has staved off Tyler Shuck throughout the season, I think still speaks to like he's been a competent player so far, right? And again, we talked about that at the start of the season, that it's kind of not embarrassing, more concerning that Shuck wasn't the starter. But if Rattler's able to play well, maybe he can rattle, no pun intended, a couple wins together. Then yeah, Shuck probably won't have the case to start this year.
You mentioned Jackson Dart. One rookie quarterback making his debut this week is Dylan Gabriel in London for the Cleveland Browns against the Minnesota Vikings. I have him and the Cleveland Browns getting a win over the Vikings. This is kind of I think, an advantageous matchup for the Cleveland Browns defense over the Vikings offense, particularly in the trenches where the Vikings have kind of struggled early in this year. And, Myles Garrett is, scaring Packers offensive tackles, and he's been arguably the best player in the NFL so far this year. Uh, Carson Wentz, his internal clock is like the worst in the league right now. He doesn't sense any sort of pressure, and I think Garrett's going to be able to feast on that pretty well. Mason Graham against the interior of this offensive line is another mismatch in Cleveland's favor. And I think Denzel Ward has been playing at an elite level as well. So I think the Browns are going to win that matchup. Offensively, I think Gabriel weirdly matches up well against the Brian Flores defense. I know he's a rookie, but he's very, very good at quick game, maybe the thing that he's best at. So if he's able to get the ball out quickly, against the Brian Flores defense that loves to blitz, that loves to speed up rookie quarterbacks, I think it's actually a matchup that the Browns are very, very well prepared for. So I have the Browns going to London and getting a win with Dylan Gabriel as the rookie quarterback starting for the team.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give this one a D. For Dylan Gabriel, I guess. They do have advantages here. Brian O'Neill, the right tackle, I think is also not expected to play. Starting right tackle for the Minnesota Vikings, and he's a very good player. On the other side of the ball, I think the Brian Flores defense is probably the worst defense you can play as a first-time starter.
That is true.
We saw that. We saw that in Week 1 for Ben Johnson as a first-time head coach, where Caleb Williams was rattled that entire game, but they were dialing some stuff up at the end there. I was not a big fan of Gabriel in the process. Obviously, he's shown something if he won that backup job over not just Shador Sanders, but Kenny Pickett was there. You have to remember who they traded. I don't even, the Raiders maybe traded for him. He's kind of like another Kenny Pickett to me, and I'm not super high on Pickett, so I don't really have conviction that Gabriel will pull off a win, but it wouldn't surprise me. And the other element here, I think, is I don't think Minnesota has traveled back to the States in their like the week before this game, because you got to remember they played in Dublin last week, so they have the rest advantage, or the internal body clock advantage, if that's anything you want to like consider. But I think Minnesota is ultimately going to get this win here. Their defense played pretty well against the Steelers, but like I don't know, they just fell short, and they weren't able to they weren't able to convert when Mike Tomlin punted the ball instead of going for it. So I think they're going to rectify that and get a win here. But like stranger things have happened. That's why I'm not going to give it an F. So I'm just going to give it a D for this one.
I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid with Dylan Gabriel, but I do think he fits Stefanski's offense better than any other quarterback on the Browns roster.
That's very fair.
I think
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's a Browns team too that's kind of more feisty than I thought they would be. They narrowly lost to Cincinnati in Week 1, and that was with Joe Burrow. And obviously, they beat Green Bay in Week 3 in a game that killed probably most survivor pools in the NFL. So, I just think it's a feisty team, and I think it's a sneaky good matchup for Gabriel, and particularly the Browns defense.
And a point in the Browns offense favor as well. I think Gabriel's going to do a better job distributing to everybody. Last week, Cedric Tillman got hurt, and Isaiah Bond, who the Browns signed like a week before the season, had quite a few receptions in that game. Their young pieces have, for the most part, all played well. Like Carson Swessinger, by the way, like sneaky Pro Bowl linebacker already. Mason
Very
Graham, you
good.
talked about, very good. And then the offensive weapons that they've added, I'll say, have played pretty well so far as rookies. So I can see like the path to victory here. Also, hope he's able to get Jerry Judy the ball, as Judy's like my receiver 5 in fantasy, so I need his value to go up a little bit. But
It'll have to be like a 14-13 type of win,
it'll
similar to
be
how
like
they did
the
today.
Packers game is how
Yeah.
it'll be. Yeah, and that could certainly happen. I'm just gonna predict the Vikings with this. Maybe I'll change it to a C because you're talking me into it. But for my final take, it's gonna be another win or like game pick here. I guess I'm gonna pick the Cardinals to win, and that's not really the take. They're playing the Tennessee Titans this week, and they don't have James Conner. They don't have Trey Benson, who was placed on IR at like 2 p.m. today. I hope you were able to get a Cardinals running back in fantasy football. But the take is that they defeat the Titans, and that means the Titans start 0-5. And that's the talk about Callahan is going to pick up. The play calling has actually gotten worse somehow since Callahan handed off the duties to Bo Hardigree, who I believe was the passing game coordinator or the QB coach, one of
It
those
was he
roles.
wasn't the OC, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't the offensive coordinator, which is weird. I mentioned the Cardinals running backs are out, but guess who played the Titans last week? It was the Houston Texans, and their running back kind of ate in that game. I won't spoil what you're about to talk about, but I think the Cardinals roll over the Titans, and if they start 0-5, somebody's getting fired. I don't know if it's going to be Callahan, but somebody has to go.
I think if this game is not competitive in any way, just like the Texans game last week, that likely means that Callahan is gone. So I'm going to give this an A plus actually, because I mean, we've talked a lot about how Brian Callahan has been out of depth in pretty much every sense of his coaching duties so far this year, from the play calling, which he's already handed over, to the game management, to not knowing what a catch is, to delay of games after timeouts, just everything that could possibly go wrong that's his responsibility has gone wrong. So yeah, I think that it's a team that looks like it has quit already. And if the Cardinals win by like 15 plus points, I think it's going to be curtains on Callahan. There were already whispers that they were going to get rid of him after this past week against Houston. So I would be waiting on the notification from Shefty after this week against Arizona if things don't go well.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to be Callahan, but I do think somebody will get the axe, unfortunately, if they start 0-5. But it feels like Callahan is a natural, like, you can't continue to delay the problem, right? Like, you got to start fresh. When your number one pick quarterback in his presser, I'm quoting him here, said, "I'm not going to lie, we're ass," to the media there when he's talking about starting 0-4. That's not generally something you want to see happen. We talked about how the players seem to have shown very little effort and have already given up, and you can't come back from that as a head coach. So it would not shock me if he is the person that gets fired.
I'm looking at their staff right now to see if there's somebody that could realistically take over. I think it would be John Fossil, who's the special teams coordinator currently for the Titans. He was the interim for the Los Angeles Rams after they fired. I think it was Jake Fisher, or not Jake Fisher. It
Jeff
was
Fisher.
Jeff Fisher. Yeah, Jake Fisher, the NBA insider. Sorry, um, but I think that's likely who it would be. They also have Denard Wilson on staff as their defensive coordinator, so they have people in place to take over, assuming Callahan is gone after this week. But we'll see what happens. I'm not pulling for anybody to get fired, but it does seem like it is inevitable at this point. But my last take is I think Woody Marks gets on the board with his second straight 2 touchdown game. He has the juice. I think he's pretty easily the Texans' most explosive running back. The Texans had their best game on the ground this week with him kind of in that lead role. Uh, they also hinted D'Amico Ryan or D'Amico Ryans did that. Um, his workload is going to increase after this past week where he was incredibly impressive. Baltimore is currently allowing the third highest EPA per rush attempt this season so far. They've struggled drastically, so I think Woody Marks is set up for a pretty big game on the ground. And I know the Texans' offensive line sucks. I know that I just mocked them taking a left tackle in the draft, but this could be a really big get right game against a defensive line that, frankly, is kind of floundering. And it should be a positive game script for this Texans team as well, considering the Ravens are likely to be without Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'm going with an A plus for two separate reasons here. One, I believe in you, like your take here. Without Lamar Jackson, this Baltimore team, I don't think is very good. Even though on paper they're good, they just haven't proven it this season. So the opportunity for the Texans to have a lead is actually pretty high here. That's why I think Marks will be involved quite heavily. The other thing is I'm probably going to start him this week, so I'm going to give it an A plus for that. Hopefully, he gets another 2+ touchdown game, maybe more. But I think he proved that he's kind of indispensable at this point. I know Joe Mixon is still out, but compared to what Nick Chubb has been providing so far, Marks has just been so easily the better player, right? He's able to work more in the pass game, even not between the tackles, but when they're able to run downhill consistently, he's gotten more, or he's had more successful runs, I should say, to this point. And it's just unfortunate that Baltimore is dealing with all these injuries because I think they're going to struggle pretty pretty significantly against the run in this game. They lose Namdi Matabuike after week 2 or 3. He's going to be out for the year. They had so many injuries in the second and third levels of the defense as well. So thinking about tackling or getting the running back out in space against defensive backs, other than Kyle Hamilton, who are you trusting to bring him down, right? So I think your take here has some legs, and hopefully, for my sake, for any of your teams that have Woody Marks' sake, he gets another 2+ touchdown games, what we'll say.
Yeah, I had dropped Woody Marks in my main fantasy league for Kenny Gainwell, and that went well last week, but it was a pretty unfortunate timing, but I was able to get him back. I was 8th in the waiver wire order, and I was able to snag him still somehow. So he is getting the start this week over Trevion Henderson for me, which is maybe a statement of faith in just how confident I am in Woody Marks and what he can be for this Texans team. So with that, we've covered a lot in this podcast. We've covered buying and selling a few 3-1 teams, some rookies, a whole mock draft, and then obviously the takes that we gave, and a lot in between that. But we're going to get out of here. Jacob, do you have any kind of final thoughts on week 5 or really anything you want to cover?
I like doing the mock draft. Maybe we can sprinkle some more of those in future episodes.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to get out of here. This was Football Talk by the 2-Point Conversion. My name's Dylan Jackson. Jacob, you can follow him at Jacob LaQuire, myself at dj.png. You can follow the show at 2p_conversion on Twitter. You can follow it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, as well as subscribing to the 2-Point Conversion, as well our website, our Substack. With that, we're going to get out of here. I appreciate everybody for listening, and we will be back at some point following Sunday's games.